Ryan Fraser scored in the 93rd minute to give Saints a win in South East London. 1-0, the final score at Millwall. Glenn, going to start with you this week. I think what we're learning is never leave a game early. And I guess it is one way to win a game, but it's not great for the nerves.
I think it's a total vindication of the Russell Martin style of football. You could see for the last half an hour that Millwall were blowing, and it was just a case of would we get the goal at the end of the day, and it was you can just imagine the Millwall players getting to 93, 94, thinking we've done it, we've got there, and then suddenly they haven't done it. So it was a beautiful thing, and a great moment for all the fans that were there. It looked absolute pandemonium. So tremendous stuff. The game as a whole, I would call it an interesting first half in that we were the better side. We're so good in the back 2/3 of the pitch, and then there was no goal threat. Again, and it was a little bit disappointing from that point of view. We had a couple of sort of half efforts that were kind of straight at the goalkeeper type things. Alcaraz had one, Stuart Armstrong had one. So actually, that was quite a decent save by our old mate Bart. And Millwall somehow didn't score with that header from 3 yards from the set piece. I would have been very disappointed in Millwall if I was a fan of theirs, because they really didn't do anything much. They had set pieces, and that was that. We got to half time at 0-0. We obviously needed to have more attacking threat in the second half, and we did. And we came out, and there were shots flying in from all over the place. Stuart Armstrong, Adam Armstrong, Suleimana brought a really good save out of Bart. It's funny, we get to the last 10 minutes. I'm never expecting a late goal, even though we've had a little bit of a habit of it now. I've never expect it. And you get 93, 94, and I'm still in the mode of settling for 0-0 myself. And then Ryan Fraser, who had done very little really since he came on, pops up to score again. So it turns what was a decent, if slightly frustrating performance into a brilliant one, getting that goal at the end. And it would be nice to win games earlier, but it doesn't give us any time to throw it away. So
That's the strategy.
not going to complain about it for a second. Brilliant.
Steve, you were in that away end. What were the scenes like at the end? How was it?
Yeah, it was good fun. Limbs and bodies flying all over the place. It was it was pretty manic. I kind of echo what Glenn said, in that it kind of almost feels inevitable that we're going to get these now. I mean, it's six goals after the 87th minute this season that have earned us 10 points on their own. And I think I read somewhere somebody actually had far more time than I did this weekend, and went back and checked. I think it's about 3.5 years, sort of before this season, where we'd actually managed to score 6 goals that late in games. The difference in us coming strong at the end of games is just such a marked difference from what we've witnessed over the past 4 or 5 years or so, where we've always looked. I mean, even when we were half decent, we always had a collapse in us at the end of a game when we were holding on for a one goal win or a draw away at a big side. And now for us to be the side that's constantly pressing, and there's always a threat there. The depth that we've got coming off the bench is good. It's interesting that the whole Ryan Fraser thing, I mean, obviously, as sort of widely documented and joked about now in hindsight, I was kind of not overly keen on the move. And I mean, he seems to be making all the right noises in terms of wanting to earn a permanent deal here and this, that, and the other. It's interesting that he seems quite content with this role of super sub, like literally only playing maybe 15, 20 minutes a game, but coming on and making the difference. And I think that's the sort of thing, those are the sort of characters that you do actually need in a side where you've got a manager who does actually now know, I think, his strongest 11. And therefore it's going to take something fairly spectacular or injuries and suspensions to change that 11 sort of going forwards.
Yeah, well, we'll get into Ryan Fraser a bit in just a minute, because there's a lot to talk about there and a lot to unpick. Alfie, it did feel like we just stepped up the pace after the break. Something was said at half-time. There was some words and maybe a bit of analysis, and the second half seemed to be much better.
Yeah, I actually thought as a whole the game probably went quite similarly to Hull City, in terms of the first half and the second half improvement. It looked totally different because Hull played a totally different way. Obviously, Millwall was the low block, and they weren't really that keen on coming out and pressing, whereas Hull were trying to play football, so the game was a bit basketball, a bit end-to-end, and looked a bit more open. And obviously, as Glen said, the set pieces for Millwall in the first half looked really dangerous, and I was really worried about that. I thought they were certain for a goal from those, like you say, whatever his name was, Wes Harding should have scored, should have put them ahead. But then Ryan Fraser said to the club at full time that, like I say, Russell Martin pointed something out at half time. They obviously want to play side to side through the thirds and then try and penetrate through the middle if they can. But I noticed in the second half that Cole Peters was getting in behind a lot more on that right hand side. So I don't know if it was just something that they just need to spread it a little bit wider and just make the pitch wider, try and pull Millwall out. But the stats show in the second half, almost complete dominance. I don't think they had a shot on target in the second half. I think they only had one in the first half, to be fair. And like I say, we've seen that countless times in a row now. It's really impressive, and Steve's absolutely right with the 10 points snatched from goals 87 minutes or later. 4 winners, and then points against Norwich and Preston as well, which is something that Ryan Manning told me would happen after Sheffield Wednesday. So we're seeing all the sort of things that I think we probably hoped to see, expected to see, and I think the best thing is there's still loads of room for improvement, in my opinion. So if they reach that, they could really be an exciting team.
Yeah, and a potential goal scorer still to come into the side. Obviously, Millwall Mickey was on the podcast last week. Lots of love for Millwall Mickey on social media. He was on to preview the game. He was also asking for members of the armed forces to get in touch if they wanted to be involved in the Remembrance Day commemorations, which were going on at the Den. Someone who did that was Alex Bennett, and I'm pleased to say that he's going to jump on and join us just to talk us through the day yesterday. Cheers for coming on, Alex. You're currently serving in the Navy, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Tell us about the day yesterday, because we got to see you on the telly looking very smart. Yeah, all good. We got to see you on the telly yesterday looking very smart in your uniform. It was it turned out to be quite a memorable day for you.
Yeah, I had a brilliant time. So first of all, thanks for having me on, guys. I heard Mickey on the show, managed to get in touch with him. He organised a parking space, a ticket for the game, along with another one for a friend of mine. Managed to get us into the exec office, went down in my ceremonial uniform, collected some donations for the British Legion, which was really nice. Got to mingle with some of the Millwall fans who were adamant before the game that they were going to concede. If I'm honest, I was probably feeling much the same for us. So fortunately, I wasn't correct, and it turned out just to be the 1-0. But yeah, really well looked after by the fans. Got to meet Russell Martin before the game. A few of the players, everyone seemed in pretty high spirits. Went onto the pitch, did the laying on the reef, held the last post, and then did a little march round to the away fans, and was quickly shuffled in to celebrate with the rest of the Southampton fans. So yeah, great experience. Had a fantastic day throughout. So yeah, I just want to say thank you to Mickey, because he organised everything, really looked after us, got us in with the exec box, and I think we met the owners of the team as well of Millwall, met their managers, and everyone was fantastic. So not the rowdy bunch that I was expecting to meet when we went there.
Alex, it's not the best connection, which may or may not be your end, but can I just ask your thoughts on the game? How did you think we played yesterday? What were your kind of takeaways, and what was that atmosphere like in the away end? Because you didn't have to watch it there, did you? You could have gone to the boxes again.
Yeah, could have, but there was a good atmosphere amongst the Southampton fans. It was good. Got a season ticket, so I'm used to a bit more of a reserved Southampton crowd, should I say. So it's nice to be with the away fans, and we're bouncing from minute one. So yeah, it was a really good experience.
And if it's good enough for James Beattie being in the way end, then it's good enough for us. What are your aspirations for the rest of the season, Alex? What are your thoughts just quickly on the manager and the team and how things are heading at the moment?
I'm really optimistic, to be honest. I think we're finally obviously hitting a bit of form now. I enjoy how Russell Martin plays. I like the change. Hopefully, we get a bit of stability now, and he's given a chance. I think the way in which we play out from the back I think it's a good way to turn in terms of like the progression that we're going to be going forward. It's just getting the Southampton fans on side, and that kind of the nerves that are felt from then probably impact the team a bit more. So as long as we can get more fans on side and get St Mary's to be the encouraging environment it needs to be, I think we can really achieve. And I don't see why playoffs are a reasonable target for us to have, to be honest.
Yeah, well, big game at the weekend. Alex, thank you for coming on. Thanks for yesterday as well. Thank you for answering Mickey's call, and enjoy the rest of the season. It's been great to have you on and to share that experience. So enjoy the rest of your weekend, Alex, who was there yesterday. A couple of other bits from the game, Glenn. I mean, I think you said yesterday that Alcaraz, it was the Alcaraz from last season that was back in the second half. What did you mean by that?
What I meant by that is that last season he seemed to have one thing in his mind, which was to drive forward at every opportunity and have a shot. Now he's at the start of this season, it's been mentioned by Russell Martin that he sometimes struggles to get Alcaraz to understand the whole picture of what he wants, and he's looked to me like a player who's been playing a bit with a burden of not really 100% understanding what he's supposed to be doing. But I thought in that second half, whether they simplified it for him or what, I just thought he was the one player who was really driving us forward and making a difference. If you look at all the chances we had in the second half, he's in the middle of most of it with bringing the ball forward. So he really stepped up, I thought, in that second half. And it's interesting that he completed the game as well, which he's never done, I don't think. Certainly not this season. He played the whole 95 or whatever. So for him to get through that all 95 minutes, I think that will give him a big sort of like boost going forward as well. Obviously, he's had the boost of linking up with Argentina as well. So there's there should be a lot more to come from him. But I thought in the second half yesterday he was excellent. A couple of misplaced passes in the first half, which can obviously happen to anyone. But he certainly stepped up in the second half, and I just thought that looked more like the player who played in a quite uninhibited way, last season. Even though the team around him was a complete shambles, he still sort of like stood out. So that's what I meant by that. So but he's got to do it for more than 45 minutes. You want to ultimately see him dominating games, which he will hopefully, when he gets a bit older, be good enough to do.
I think it's a good spot from you, Glenn, because Russell Martin at full time yesterday, unprompted, mentioned that he thought that was Charlie Alcaraz's best game for Southampton this season. So you got the ID.
Well, Alfie, the other thing was, I think the manager said after the game that Ryan Fraser would have started had he not had food poisoning. I don't know if you picked up on that as well. He said he's had a frustrating week and he may have started the game had he not had food poisoning. So is that some sort of clue to the West Brom game? Do you think he would have had a bigger role yesterday?
To be fair, I didn't hear that. He said that last week about an illness. So I don't know if maybe he's just referring to that last week. But I think so. Yeah, but I mean, when we spoke to Ryan and to Russell, they both said the same thing in sort of terms of, I'd love to start Ryan, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to change a winning team. And I think you sort of alluded to it earlier, Glenn and Steve, where you said that's exactly the sort of character you do want in the squad. And I think Ryan is more than happy to actually just be that super sub right now. And like I say, I don't think they're going to be rushing to change that. I'd be very surprised if it wasn't the same 11 again next Saturday for West Brom.
Well,
but if he keeps...
Oh, of course. Yeah, very true. That is a big blow, actually. I didn't even notice at the time as well. I only found that out this morning. It's an interesting one. I mean, we'll get back to the debate of is it Mason Holgate or Shea Charles again? Obviously, we had that conversation when Taylor came out last week. I don't know what you guys think about that.
It's got to be Holgate.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
The good thing is, Steve, as you point out, 5 wins out of 7 now, and building some momentum, and it gradually it's starting to feel all right. It's coming back on track. It's a good time.
Yeah, and we're not. Birmingham aside, last week for the vast majority of the game, we've not played against teams that are very obviously rubbish. We're getting results against sides that are very well organised, and in many cases have their own qualities. Millwall defensively strong. As we mentioned, we didn't create a huge amount of clear-cut opportunities, but ultimately we had the composure in the last minute, and that's kind of one thing that I want to say about Adam Armstrong is that, I mean, as ever, he's not involved like on a constant level in games, but for him to have played 95 minutes and in the 93rd minute, the ball falls to him about 3 yards from the near post, most number 9s would be swinging their left foot at that and just hoping that it finds a gap. But he's got the presence of mind to just lay the simple pass off to Ryan Fraser, who's obviously in an infinitely better position. That does show both sort of clarity of thinking and a sort of unselfishness, which you don't often see in centre forwards. But I think it's kind of an underrated part of his game, I think.
And it looks like Ross Stewart might be coming in soon. Alfie, I know he had scored at the weekend on Friday. Was it the under-21s? He played 45 minutes and scored. So that's going to give everybody a lift if he's just back in the squad this weekend.
Yeah, it took him 7 minutes to get that goal, didn't it?
And it
I think the club,
well.
I mean the club were sort of trying to keep it as low key as possible because obviously they didn't know exactly how fit he's going to be, how ready he is. But good stretch for the ball. Put him off 45. There was a few fans saying, "Oh, hopefully just resting him for tomorrow." I think there was any chance of that. I'd be. They said he'll come back in now, won't they? So they've said he'll probably be on the bench. So maybe he'll get 20 minutes, maybe he'll get 30 minutes, but I don't think we should be expecting loads from Ross Stewart. I suppose the one thing that does come at a good time is that it's international break straight after. So if he gets on for 15, 20 minutes, sort of gets over that mental block of playing a game for the first time since January, he then has another 10 days of just pure work with Russell Martin, with the team, fully get back up to speed, and who knows, he could even be ready to do sort of 30, 35, 40 when they come back. So yeah, I think it's a good option to have. The international break's interesting because the last 2 times I think we've come into the international break sort of with the real potential for a real high 2 weeks. And obviously we had Sunderland, we had Rotherham last time around. So it'd be nice if they could just get the job done this weekend and give everybody an unequivocal positive 2 weeks to not worry about it at all.
And yeah, I mean, we will get on to West Brom very soon, but Glenn, it just feels like, with Ipswich dropping some points at the weekend, I thought, they were going to get their first defeat. Leicester obviously losing on Friday night. Ross Stewart coming back in. Maybe things are starting to move in the right direction and we can all be a bit positive heading into that break.
Yeah, I think this came from last year. I don't really care about anyone else. We got to do our job. I mean, that Leicester Leeds game, that was one of those ones where, yeah, it's funny that Leicester lost at home, but did we want Leeds to win? Probably not, really, because Leicester are miles out in front at the moment. So, and Ipswich, I'm fully confident that they're not going to last the pace with the squad that they've got. So, we've just got to look after ourselves and make sure that we keep picking up points, keep this home form going. Hopefully, keep improving, and all will be well. And the league table will look after itself. But yeah, it's very, very positive times at the moment with the performances we're putting in, the results that we're getting, the general way that we're playing in a sort of controlled way, and bring on West Brom next week, and I'm looking forward to that one. It's another team in good form, so yeah, things are very positive. And yes, you're dead right. It would be nice to go into the international break with another win, but. If we don't, then you've just got to reflect on sort of like how well the last few weeks have gone, and no one goes through the whole season without any blips whatsoever. So if there is, if we do draw, or even if we get beat, we've just got to think, well, okay, we've got to pick it up again. The team's more than capable of doing that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go through Player of the Week. Any standout performers for you, Steve? Who are you going to narrow it down to?
I think I'm going to go for Kyle Walker-Peters. I think first half we didn't quite use him as much as we should. It wasn't like the Birmingham game where Birmingham cut off the passing lane to him. Millwall were letting us pass out to him, but we chose not to, which I found a little bit strange. But second half showed a lot more willing to get the ball into those areas. Clearly a design thing. And he caused them all kinds of bother second half, and it was ultimately him running them ragged down that flank, which tired them out, I think.
I know this is not the segment we're doing, but I tweeted about Kyle Walker-Peters early today because I've been so impressed with him. And I had a couple of people saying, it's nearly January soon. It's not something that I've thought about at all. But do any of you have a fear or a worry that maybe when January first comes, you're going to be sat there for 30 days sort of hoping that Kyle doesn't get a call?
I think realistically, if anyone was going to come, it would have been the summer. a year. Yeah, I mean 4 or 5 months of watching him play against championship opposition, I'm not sure is gonna have changed anybody's opinion on him really. I mean he's comfortably the best fullback in the division. But is that enough for the sort of level of club that we would consider selling him to? So I don't think we're going to be in any mood to sell to your sort of Forests or West Ham or Bournemouth or anybody sort of in the sort of outside of the top 6 really. And are any of those big sides going to be coming in for him? I wouldn't have thought so. I think that if they're looking at fullback, they're looking to someone who can come in immediately and play at Champions League level.
It looks like he's enjoying his football again, doesn't it? He's got a smile on his face and he seems to be loving life, which I know you can't really read too much into that, but you would think that, it definitely helps. Right, any other nominations for Player of the Week? So we've got Carl Walker-Peters. I'll chuck Ryan Fraser in just because he scored the goal. Glenn, anyone from you? You're going to go with Alcaraz?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'll go with Carlos Alcaraz, but if I could have it, if I could maybe nick a second one in there, I'd go for Jan Bednarek again, because I think he holds everything together. There was one particular moment I didn't mention earlier on where Harwood Bellis made a bit of a mistake, and Bednarek read that superbly and went across and snuffed it out, and that's kind of the role that he's playing now. He seems to be more of a leader at the back, and I know we've mentioned him before in that context, relatively recently, but. It will be interesting to see how we replace him next week, not least because he plays the left-hand side as well, which I know Holgate doesn't prefer because he's very right-footed. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. But I think Bednarek could be a big loss next week.
Any other names for the mix, Alfie? Chuck in
I'll go for the other one.
Stewart for Friday? And,
no, I'll go for the other one. I'll go for Taylor Harwood-Bellis because I think similar to exactly what Glenn said, basically. But I think he did the same thing for Jan as well. I think they just both cover each other so well. And I think Taylor's particularly strong as well. I don't think he's the quickest player in the world, but he's really strong. Shielded. There was one moment actually where he shielded the ball out for about 10, 15 yards with about 4 players on his back. And I was pretty nervous about it, but he sees it through. So, yeah, that partnership is brilliant. I'm gutted that they won't be playing together against West Brom, but hopefully he can just come through that.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Hey, talking about nerves, what about when Camaldine decided to do the nutmeg in his own penalty area? What was all that about?
that was Camaldine's
and then turned back and played it across the 6-yard box. 40-yard pass.
Marvellous. What was the atmosphere in the ground like when he did that?
Well, that's the thing. I think Camaldine was doing that as a response to the atmosphere in the ground, I think, because he got a little bit, didn't he, when he needed treatment, obviously, as we've sort of mentioned. So I think he really played up to that atmosphere, and it's a massive risk to take. And like I say, if I played that ball across the 6-yard box when I was playing, albeit I was terrible, I wouldn't have got the same reaction that Russell Martin gave him, which was a big round of applause on the sideline saying, "Well done, Camaldine." But yeah, I think good player.
Right, we'll get that Player of the Week polled on our social media.